Hey everybody, it's Javad. I'm back in the wood shop. Actually, I'm still in the wood shop. It's the same time as the first intro video I just filmed about all the cool drivers I'm using in my new Enthraal project. But I'm just not going to release this one for a couple days to build up the suspense. So, anyways, these are the drivers we went over last time. CSS APR10, CSS SDX10, 4 ohm. So I get a little extra power bump from the 4 ohm. Then the LDW7, which is an 8 ohm. And the RAW 7020 OEM tweeter that I finagled both some strings and got. In fact, I was sworn to secrecy at where I got those from, and they said they'd kill me if I told anyone. So anyways, the 7010's out there if you guys really want to try it. So I'm sure you can agree, these are freaking cool parts, and I'm really honored to work with them. And so I've really been racking my brain for the last couple weeks on what the heck am I going to do about an enclosure. And in the past year, you guys have seen me do translam layups, kerfing projects. My last project, the EPQ3W, was a trapezoidal birch cabinet with Chechen solid wood veneers. And you know, every time I do one of these projects, I want to kind of step it up a notch and do something special that I haven't seen, and really give you guys a reason to follow along and appreciate what I'm doing. And so I'll get into a little bit more about the construction technique I'm using on this particular project. But don't forget the Enthraals. You know, I was thinking, what wood do I want to use? What kind of construction do I want to use? And I'll talk about more about the construction. And so I was kind of thinking maple, maybe curly maple, and I had that in my head. And so I started thinking about walnut, and I haven't really done anything in walnut. I've actually never built a speaker with walnut, and it's beautiful wood. And so I went down to Home Depot, which is the Home Depots around here carry Swainer hardwood. They have a beautiful selection of hardwood, and the walnut they had, it's kind of boring. It was nothing special. In fact, what it was that they had is right here. Look, the one on the left here, plain sawn walnut. So that's where you take a tree and you just slice it up. Kind of like, I don't know, if you were slicing a cucumber in a microplane or something. And what happens is the saw cuts through the grain. And so at one point in the middle here, you're actually going to be looking at the side of the grain. But for the rest of it, you're looking at a cut that's tangential to the grain. And so woods that you see with big, wide grain patterns, you know, these are flat cut, plain sawn cuts. And so I left Home Depot. You know, it was nice wood, but I'm sorry, it just wasn't special enough. I mean, we got a RAW 7020 over here, and, you know, I'm not just going to throw some plain sawn, you know, walnut at that stuff. So I went down to Ara Lumber Hardwoods, which is in San Jose. And I think you guys have some of you guys have probably seen me post about Ara before. And so I asked them what they had. They had the plain sawn stuff out, and they also had some quarter sawn right here wood. So you can see the way quarter sawn is cut, that the cuts are radial through the grain. So what you get is a much tighter grain because you're looking at the side of the grain. And what happens is some interesting features in the wood come out and pop because of the way it's being cut. So I looked at their quarter sawn lumber on the floor that they had, and it's all right. I mean, it's definitely nicer. It's cool. But I went to the counter and I asked them, well, you know, you got any more in the back? And the guy's like, yeah, you know what? We just got a whole new pallet in. It's in the very back. But if you want, you know, I could pull it out with a forklift. And I was like, bring it out. I want to see it. And so he brought it out. It was a big stack of wood, about 4 feet tall and 6 feet wide. And, you know, I started looking at the stuff on the top, and it was nothing special. So I was there for an hour, and I unloaded that whole pallet. Actually, one of the guys, managers, came out and yelled at me. But I unloaded, and I got down to the bottom of that pile, and oh boy, was I rewarded with some beautiful wood. And what I was really looking for wasn't just an interesting grain pattern, but I'm looking for, you know, what's known as fiddleback, or I don't know, sometimes it's called tiger pattern. But some of the walnuts gets a little disease, and the grain starts to wave a little bit. So what happens is when they quarter saw through that, they cut through the tops and the bottoms of those waves, and you get this really beautiful marking. A lot of you guys love it when you see it in veneers, and veneers are easy, right? Because they find one nice piece of wood and they just slice it real thin and they get a million miles of wood out of it. But when you're talking about solid lumber, it's a lot harder to come by. So I spent about an hour and a half there, and I finally got down to the bottom of the pile. And not only did I find beautiful figured wood, which is the fiddleback figure, but I also believe that I found all the same pieces from the same tree. So I got 50 board feet of beautiful figured wood that all has the same grain pattern. And some of these pieces are even mirrored to each other. So I know that they're from the same tree. So here we go. This is it. This is the walnut that I got. And there's a pile on the floor here. Let's take a closer look at it. So this is rough planed. It's called skip plane. So the planer just barely skips through the rough surface, and this is a relatively rough. I mean, this is not sanded, but you can see these lines here. That's the figure, and that's the fiddleback that I'm talking about. And what happens is the planer, as the blades come, it'll tear out this grain here. So because the grain's going the wrong direction, the blade cuts perpendicularly through it, and as it shears it, it breaks off that grain. So you have to be really careful when you're working with wood like this, but it's well worth it. Now check out these pieces here. These are from the same tree, these are the same piece, and right now I have them laid out so they're mirrored. But I got a whole pile of this, and this wood is beautiful. I won't need all this wood, so I'll have some more for another project in the future. But you can see, if you want to get a really special result with wood, you know, it takes a little bit more work. Veneering is much easier. You go on the website, you look at the veneers, you buy it, and you know, they slice it real thin. But this is what's special to me about using solid hardwood like this is the results and the special results are a little harder to come by. So when you can come by it, it's all that much more rewarding. So I'll get into a little bit more about what I'm going to do with this wood. It's not going to be probably anything you've seen. I certainly haven't seen this technique, but the technique, I believe, will not only look amazing, but I believe it'll address a lot of the issues with hardwood and some of the issues with movement and expansion, and create you know, a cabinet that's looks beautiful and that will last a long time. I don't have any doubts that it'll last in the 30% year-round humidity we have here in California. Rest of the country, you know, is even much more challenging to work with. So anyways, this is my walnut, my figured walnut. Oh yeah, and you know how I was talking about the tear out with the figure and the fiddleback here? This is the solution right here. My trusty jet sander. And so I will use my DeWalt planer to get down to the rough dimension I want, and then I'll do the final thickness dimensioning on one side with my sander, because it'll sand through that grain instead of tearing it out. So thanks for following along, guys. Again, Enthraal project. The name's a little ethereal. All right, talk to you guys soon.